G'day mate, Paul again here. How you going? Beautiful rainy day in Darwin today. You can probably hear the rain in the background. Yeah, we really need it. Need to fill up the billabongs, and a few of my favourite wildlife photography haunts need a bit more water. So yeah, all good. Not much good for getting out, but yeah, beautiful day. So often on rainy days like today, not that I get that many, I'll be working in the office, you know, going over footage and cleaning up my photos and, you know, doing a bit of editing and that sort of stuff. Good weather for that. So yeah, and that sort of brings on today's subject for today's video. Yeah, the challenge of archiving footage. As you guys probably are aware, if you've been following me for a little while, I'm getting more into video these days. I'm videoing right now, aren't I? But I mean videoing wildlife. I'm still a keen wildlife photographer, don't get me wrong. Love me stills and all that, but often when I head out, I'll take just as much video or footage as I do photos. So yeah, pretty keen. And yeah, one of the challenges I'm coming up against, and I think most people, you know, who are getting into video and a bit new to video like me, is just, you know, having the space to store all this stuff. And it's not just the space, of course, it's just being able to find what you want easily, yeah, not having to scrub through lots of footage. And the very nature of wildlife photography, I guess, is, you know, you'll see a bird in a tree or on a branch, or, you know, it could be a wallaby in the bush there, and you don't know what he's going to do, so you'll film him for a few minutes perhaps, and, you know, just waiting for something interesting to happen. And yeah, the interesting part might only last for a few seconds, you know. Often I might take a clip for, you know, up to 3 minutes or longer, depending on what I'm looking at. And, you know, he'll just do something interesting. The bird will fly off. He'll, you know, be eating a bug, or the, you know, the wallaby will jump along or something like that. You just want those few seconds. You know, hard drives are limited. I try and store my stuff in the cloud as well, so uploading and downloading and all that stuff. I don't want to store, you know, hours of footage, you know, potentially for years. I really can't afford to, and I don't want to mess around and dig up, you know, old footage and find the bits that I want out of it, you know, with too much difficulty as well. So I guess the challenge is I need to reduce my clips just to the bit that I want, and that sounds pretty easy. You know, every video editor, you know, you hit an in and out point, you know, reduce it to what you want and export it. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is every time we do that, by default, it gets re-encoded. For those who are, you know, old as I am, you might remember the old VHS tapes and that sort of stuff. It's similar to that generation loss, you know. You'd have a master VHS tape, you'd make a copy of it and, you know, give it to someone. It could be a movie or something cool, and then they'd make a copy of that. Every time they made a copy of that, you'd reduce the quality of it. And similar even in this digital era, when we re-encode, it gets re-compressed, you know, all those sort of factors come into play. You know, I spend a lot of money on my gear, I spend a lot of money on fuel getting out and doing stuff. I do want the maximum quality. I want that raw master footage intact. I don't want it, you know, reduced in quality, of course. So trimming it and then exporting it, by default, that's not what I'm after. So I've done a little bit of research, and yeah, hopefully, you know, this will help you guys as well. As I say, I'm very new to videography, so you guys might have a few tips for me as well, and even see some error in my ways. I'd be really keen to learn about any comments you might have. Leave them in the comments below, that'd be great. So yeah, basically, I found a way to do it, and it depends on the codec we're using. So I'll quickly go over these, you know, two types of codecs, I guess, without getting too technical. It's not meant to be a technical video. I guess, you know, if you're watching this, you're probably interested in trimming video as well, so you're going to know a little bit about video. And yeah, I'm no guru, don't worry about that. Alright, so the two types of video, I mean, the first one is sort of you know, your delivery codec. It's, you know, what you'll film by default internally in most, you know, consumer cameras, or even prosumer cameras, professional cameras, depending on what they are. You know, they might be H.264 basically, you know, fairly heavily compressed, a really good delivery format. You know, it's what you upload to YouTube, it's what you share on Facebook, and all that sort of stuff. And the other sort of codec is a more of an intermediate codec, and it's more suitable for archiving. And you'll only have access to it perhaps if you have an external recorder, like I'm recording this on, an Adamus Ninja. So you might have a video on that. I just quickly went over that. And that video codec is a bit less compressed. It's a higher bit rate, better quality. Now there's two key differences between them, apart from all the quality differences and technicalities. But just in regards to this video, when we're talking about trimming these clips to archive without any loss, that's the key. There's two key differences. And again, don't quote me on this, it's not a scientific accurate description I'm going to give, don't worry. But basically, with your MP4 or your H.264 sort of delivery codecs, that they work a little bit differently than the intermediate codecs, and that is they have these things called iframes. I don't know how far they are apart, but say every so many frames you'll have these iframes, and basically those iframes have a complete record of the image, of the scene, the video frame. But in between those iframes, basically you're only recording, the codec is only storing what's different between the iframes. It's not storing the actual iframes themselves, or those frames themselves I should say. And you might have noticed, if you've got a drone for example, they're notoriously hard to edit with, and even your normal H.264 out of your SLR cameras and all that aren't quite as nice as these intermediate codecs to edit with, to scrub through and pick a point that you want. You might have to use proxy files for example, and this is the main reason for that. They're using H.264 or some similar codec, and because the actual image is only stored in these iframes, and it's only the differences between those iframes stored in between, and these are all compressed. It's a lot more complicated than what I'm saying, of course, but as you scrub through footage, unless you're on an actual iframe, that your PC has to build what that image is. It has to use the codec and unencode it, or decode it, sorry, and build each frame as you're going along. It's not actually stored. It's quite a mathematical task it's got to do, very computer intensive. So when you're scrubbing drone footage, which is often very heavily compressed, that's why it's such a struggle. So that's the first type of video codec. It's these sort of delivery codecs, have these iframes. Just keep in mind, we've got these frames in between. The other one is of course these intermediate codecs like Prores, DNX. I'm recording this in DNX on my Adamus Ninja. And basically the way to look at those, and again not technically accurate, but they're storing that frame, that video frame, every single frame. So it produces larger file sizes. They're not compressed as much, but they're a lot easier to work with. The computer doesn't have to work out what each frame looks like basically. Now the significance between these two codecs, as far as we're concerned, for trimming without loss, is that with these delivery codecs, these H.264 type codecs, there's probably a name for that sort of family. We need to trim it right at those iframes. We need to find some software, and I'm going to show you on the computer in a minute. There's some good little free bits of software, and it'll actually allow you to trim it at those iframes, not in between. And they'll actually allow you to reduce your 5 minutes of footage to 30 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever bit you want to store. But it'll be, the in and out point will be to the nearest iframe, and you'll be able to save that little selection that you've picked out as a separate file with no quality loss. So that's the beauty. So we'll get onto that. With these like ProRes, DNX, whatever, I can actually do that from Adobe Premiere. You might be able to do it with your software of choice. I'm not sure how to do the delivery codecs in Adobe Premiere to trim them losslessly. Let me know if you know. So I'll show you this other software I use, free bit of software. But with Adobe Premiere, there's a feature called Smart Rendering. This is the website, and I'll link this website below in the description for this video. And it'll go over what codecs you can use it for, in what instances. But the trick is just to export your video in Premiere, but using this smart rendering. So we can't make any changes to the footage. We're not doing any color grading or cropping or effects of any sort. Otherwise we'll be telling Premiere to re-encode, and we don't want that. We're just giving our in and out point, saying look, just use smart rendering, export this to another file, and it'll be that raw footage that we shot, just a smaller selection of it. And obviously the benefits of this is we're just saving heaps of hard drive space. When I go back to find that kingfisher eating a bug on a tree, whatever it was, it's right there. I'm not scrubbing through minutes of footage to find it. So I've got more chance of reusing that footage and getting the most out of my footage. So it's a win-win situation. But the main thing for me, I'm running out of hard drive space, especially when you record externally. These files are huge. I think we're doing 800 megabits per second data rate when I'm recording to the Adamus Ninja. Alright guys, looks like there's rain set in. Beautiful day. Should be sleeping or reading a book. But let's get into the office, and I'll just quickly show you these two methods I've got. Trimming our footage losslessly, no quality loss. As a master, we can then store away to be reused again. But two different methods. One for those delivery H.264 type formats, and one for your ProRes or your DNX. So let's go and have a look on the computer. So guys, we're back in the office, and yeah, look at that radar for Darwin at the moment. She's pretty wet. Yeah, send them down, Huey. That's great. Alright, let's get into this software. So yeah, I've googled here AVI Demux download. This is the software AVI Demux that's suitable for trimming those delivery formats like H.264 I mentioned. When you Google it, as you saw, you seem to get all sorts of weird results. So yeah, just make sure you go into the SourceForge website. That seems to be the right one. So I've already downloaded it and installed it. So we'll bring it across to this window. And yeah, it's a fairly basic looking interface, as you can see. To be honest, I don't know anything about the software part, from how to just trim my H.264 videos and save that bit losslessly. It probably does all sorts of other things. It's probably a full-on video editor as far as I know. But yeah, a bit of free software. And so yeah, if you want to try this as well, I'll just show you what I do. So let's open a file. So basically I've got two files here. One's a bit of drone footage, H.264. One's actually some DNX footage that we'll use Adobe Premiere, as I mentioned. So let's open the drone footage in this. As mentioned, yeah, this is notoriously hard to scrub footage and edit. And I do want to just cut a bit of this out. So this is a bit of drone footage, some territory coastline, a bit of a storm. I'm not going to muck around too much. Now basically how this software works is we hit our in and out point, A and B basically, and we ask to trim it to that. So yeah, just quickly, let's just pick a bit of footage. Let's pretend that's our in point, and this is our out point. Now see, the selection that AVI Demux has done for me there, it is actually a little bit off where I actually selected my out point. So yeah, you might recall with this kind of footage, this H.264 type footage, we do have to cut it where the iframe is, and that'll allow us to just to save without loss that part of the footage. If we wanted another part, the software would have to generate some frames, work it out from the iframes, what's missing the iframe on the other side, all sorts of technical issues. But we don't want to re-encode, so we're going to put up with that. We're just going to trim it at the actual iframes. Now, just the other thing with this software in particular, I find I want to save it as an MP4, not MKV, so I usually pick MP4 muxer. I don't know what muxer means, but this works. And I'll get an error normally unless I pick some other audio output, so I just make that MP3. The drone footage doesn't have audio obviously anyway, but your footage might. And now we can go save. I'm just going to save this in the same folder. I put trimmed on the end just so we can compare file sizes, and we'll go save, and that's been saved successfully. Alright, let's close AVI Demux and we'll open Adobe Premiere, and I'll show you how to do the intermediate codecs and how to trim that. Right folks, so we're in Adobe Premiere now. Let's import our footage. We'll go to that same folder, video trim. So yeah, we've got our drone footage there in the trim version. So this is this DNX codec basically. So this is an intermediate codec, and as I said in our little introduction, basically this sort of codec, it's like an iframe every frame, so it doesn't have to reconstruct the actual footage. Alright, so this is some lovely footage of a couple of kingfishers actually, and let's drag that onto our timeline. And basically, yeah, it's sitting on a branch. One takes off eventually. Bit of camera shake at the start of it while I'm manually focusing, I assume, and then the kingfish takes off. So the second half of this footage basically, the branch is shaking due to the bird taking off, I assume. The other bird's out of focus still. I haven't adjusted my focus to get them in focus. I don't want to record all of that. From memory, this is like a 2.1 gig file, even though it's quite short. So obviously, I'm just going to find my in point when I stop shaking the camera. About there maybe. Let's just trim it there. Find my out point. Bird takes off there. Let's have a little bit of footage after he takes off. And let's just trim that. And that's all I really want to use. How do we export this using this smart rendering? So again, let's go export as per normal. And that document I showed you on that website, the Adobe website, what goes into all this. Has all sorts of different options and different formats, but I seem to get errors unless I use this way, so I'll show you how I do it. I actually select QuickTime, and under the preset. The first one is actually this match source rewrap, and this rewrapping, basically, from what I can tell, you're rewrapping it within a container or format. You don't want to do anything else to it. So let's give this a name, and we'll put trimmed on the end of this one as well. Now, one thing to observe here, which is quite interesting, it's it's only 6 seconds long, whatever, but have a look how quickly it does it. And basically, you might guess that because it's not re-encoding, it's just so quick. Even quite a long bit of footage, I found it just exports really quickly, and it's not doing that computer-intensive workflow of re-encoding. It's just rewriting that part of the file, and that's why it's so quick. So there you go, guys. I just have that few seconds of footage now, and I'm not storing all that footage, so I don't want to. And yeah, let's look at this these files. Yeah, we have 4 files now. As you can see, the trim version's about a third or maybe a bit more than the actual full version of that DNX footage. But yeah, I'm saving a gig and a half there or whatever. It's quite handy. And yeah, the other one's much smaller, isn't it? Again, I'd love to hear any comments. You might have better suggestions or ideas. So yeah, leave the comments below. And yeah, really appreciate it if you subscribe. Yeah, hit that little bell to be informed of any new videos. If you're keen into wildlife and nature photography or videography, little tips as I go along and as I'm learning, you can learn with me. And yeah, even if you just enjoy some good nature photography, please subscribe. Alright guys, take it easy, eh? See you next time. Cheers.